Welcome back. We're talking with the experts from CattleFax today, and we're turning our conversation to international markets. Let's turn to you, Brett. Is international trade good for the U.S. beef industry?
Trade is good for the industry, Kevin. There are a lot of pros and cons to consider when we look at trade, and trade's a two-way street. And by that I mean we have imports and we have exports. The import side is often a political football, and there's a lot of people that are sensitive about imports. But if we really put that on the scale and weigh the imports against the real value we get from exports, absolutely trade is good for our industry. If we look back to the BSE bans in 2003, when all these borders closed to us, we figured the value based on export premiums and based on the amount of beef that came back on our domestic markets. We lost a total value of right around $175 a head due to those bans. And when I talk about export premiums, I'm talking about the value that we get overseas from cuts that we don't typically use here. Things like beef tongues, short ribs, things that have limited use here at home. We can look at Korea, probably the best example, and we take these short ribs that have very limited use here, send them to Korea, demand is phenomenal. Korea is a small beef producer, but the short ribs are very, very high demand. Every animal we slaughter here has about 10 pounds of short ribs. If we look at the wholesale price of short ribs before BSE and after BSE, we're adding about $15 a head to every animal we produce, just due to the fact that we have Korea open as a buyer of short ribs. That's pretty significant when you look at it in the grand scheme of our industry profitability. Lately we can see, just with Korea opening, we're sending about 90% of our pre-BSE volumes to Korea today.
It's a huge accomplishment. So tell me, can U.S. beef be competitive in this global marketplace?
That's a very good question. We've always been able to carve out our niche as a grain-fed beef producer. We're the high-quality beef out there. We're a little more expensive. That's kind of the common conception compared to the South American beef, which is very cheap, very cheaply produced. The reality is today, if we look at U.S. beef carcass prices compared to carcass prices around the world, South America included, we are very competitive today with Brazilian beef, with Australian beef, based on the fact that we denominate in U.S. dollars. This weak U.S. dollar has made us incredibly competitive. And so not only are we a premium product out there, we're also a very cheaply priced product. We can go into Russia. Russian importers today can buy U.S. beef cheaper than they can buy Brazilian beef due to exchange rates. And so yes, we're very competitive in the world today.
That's great news, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me, put it on your vision and tell us what the future looks like for the U.S. competitiveness in the global beef market long term.
The global outlook's very good for U.S. beef. I think we look at two key variables that drive global beef consumption: income and population. Both of them are doing fine. Population continues to grow. Incomes continue to grow. We have millions, if not hundreds of millions of people around the globe that are making that shift from a rice and beans diet up to a meat and starch-based diet. We have that massive movement. We also have very good per capita income growth. You look at South Asia, Latin America, some of these countries where population and income are really, really growing. The potential is very good for U.S. beef globally. Also, you look at U.S. beef, we have a very good resource base. We're very efficient producers here. It all leads us to believe that there is enormous potential for us. 95% of the world population lives outside of our borders. And so to turn our back on these international markets would be pretty foolish when we see the potential there.